What's going on, guys? It's George coming at you with another video. It's another beautiful day out here in Soho, and for today, guys, basically what we got going on is we're gonna be working on the Datsun. It's actually in the garage right now. I've pretty much been doing some stuff to the engine bay, and little by little it's actually been becoming, as you can see, like a coffee table for me. So aside from that, the main purpose for today's video is I'm actually gonna be updating the Datsun's brakes, and I'm primarily working on the rear brakes. That's going to be the main concern for today. I actually already dealt with the front brakes. Basically, we're still using the original calipers. They still work well. Dang, look at my beard. It makes me look like riffraff. Though that's pretty much where the primary concept for today's video is going to come from. The Datsun is a car from the 70s, and it was one of the first cars to actually incorporate disc brakes, but it only used disc brakes in the front. So the rear was still using a drum. So I wanted to go ahead and completely remove the drum brakes and completely step aside from using drum brakes in general. I'm actually going to flip on over to the opposite side. That way we can start on the passenger side rear disc brake conversion for the Datsun 280Z. Alright, so you guys can see that the actual brake is actually these shoes. That's what they're called. When you step on your brake pedal, the master cylinder will send the pressure from the brake fluid to these brake lines here, and the brake line actually distributes the pressure into what are called these shoes. Shoes are actually expanding, and they're actually pushing out against this cover. So this is technically like a rotor. That's technically what this is. So what we have to do now is just take off these shoes, and then we're gonna have to remove this backing plate and dust shield. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this as a time lapse just to go ahead and make time go by faster, but that's what we're about to do. Also, if you wanna wear gloves, because obviously this is gonna get messy, so. Alright, so as you guys can tell, it's a little bit of work to actually get them out. Pretty much just because there are these springs that hold them in place. The whole point we're doing that is just to go ahead and modernize the car a little bit. There's really two ways you can do it. You can remove the axle shaft, but the difficulty in that is that there is a locking nut in the back. I would have to grind down the plate and remove that grinded down area. What I'm going to be doing instead is making my life a little bit easier. Just going to be cutting off the backing plate altogether. Alright, so I have all of the hardware pretty much off of the car at this time. Mind the dirty hands, and I think I have some dirt on my face. I'm not even sure at this point. All the hardware is off of the old brake system. All that's left to do pretty much is just to go ahead and use the angle grinder to start cutting it out. It's going to be a couple seconds for you guys because we're just going to do a time lapse and make this easier on everybody. But that's all that's left to do right now, so let me get to it. It took a bit of time, but after angle grinding it, then hand grinding it with the Dremel, then pretty much beating it up with a chisel and a hammer, we finally got it off. That's only because there was really bad area to reach inside of here, so it's really difficult to get in there. The last thing I did was pretty much use a chisel with the hammer, chiseled it out the rest of the way. That's why, as you can see, these are pretty clean lines up until we get here. So ooh, it's pretty bright out, but now all that's left to do is to go ahead and get the new caliper and the new rotor and the adapter plate, and we'll go ahead and mount it right onto the old assembly. That way we can go ahead and have the new caliper setup ready for the rear disc brake conversion. Things first, this is the mounting bracket for the caliper. What we're gonna be doing is there's a slot in this which actually slides right over the area. All right, so
The new rotor is on, the new caliper is on, and right now it's a little loose, but that's just because I have to go ahead and tighten up the bolts. Plus, I don't actually have the brake pads inside of the caliper right now, but we're going to be tightening up the rest of the hardware, and once the hardware is fully tightened on, we'll get the brake pads on, and we'll finish up the lines. That way we can go ahead and finish up the job for today. So that's pretty much going to be an easy install. Alright guys, so I actually encountered another problem. So I had these steel braided brake lines. I actually ended up getting this fitting right here, which is basically a coupler. The only issue I had with that was that it's not flared on either end. I put it on thinking nothing was going to be a problem. I started bleeding the brakes and fluid started leaking out. So instead, what I'm going to be doing is using the actual brake line that came with the kit. This end right here, which is the male side, it actually does have the threads. This side fits on the caliper properly. This side, however, which is the flared end with the fitting, this side doesn't fit properly onto the OEM 3/16 fitting. Because I can't use the OEM spec with the coupler because it'll leak, I'm going to be using these instead, and I'm actually going to be using a new fitting. So what I'm going to be doing instead is I'm actually going to be using a hard line cutter. That way I can cut out the old flared fitting, and then I'm going to put a new flared fitting that'll actually fit into this properly, and then we're going to flare that hard line. That way we don't have any more leaks. So this here is the OEM fitting that was on here. So you can see that end right there was actually flared, but this fitting here unfortunately does not fit onto this fitting properly here, and we'll be able to swap this out here with this fitting instead. All right, so I finished putting the fitting on. As you can see, it went on pretty well. So now all that's left to do is we're gonna end up flaring this end right here. That way this doesn't fall off and it creates that permanent seal. All right guys, so it is another day past, unfortunately. It's really hot in the desert, so it just makes it really difficult to be, working on the car for a long period of time at least. So I can work on it for maybe a couple hours, maybe 2 to 3 hours, but after that time it gets too hot to start working. We hit up to like 120 degrees here in the valley, and so it gets really hot throughout the day. So I try and wake up as early as I can, or I try to do it closer to the evening when the sun's going down. That's why this is expanded. Sort of like my radiator video, if you guys watched it. If you guys haven't watched it, feel free to go ahead and click on the link right there, or right there. There's a link in one of these arrows that I'm pointing to, but nonetheless, if you saw that video, you'd see that it was over a period of time that I had to do it to upgrade the Datsun's cooling system, just because it is an older car. It does need a lot more patience than what a newer car would need, and because of that, it does take a lot longer to do certain things. But besides that, I'm pretty much done with everything. It was like a 3-day process of getting this done. If you guys need to borrow tools, hit up AutoZone, hit up O'Reilly. I mean, they have a bunch of tools that you guys can just loan, and it's free to do. I mean, obviously you have to put a deposit to get the tool, but when you return it, you get your money back. It's way more worth it if you're on a budget and doing certain things. But nonetheless, guys, at this point, the rear disc brake conversion from drum brakes for the Datsun 280Z is fully completed. And I mean, if anybody, wants any old drum brakes that are hacked in half, hit me up. And I mean, if you guys want some of this stuff, I mean, the covers are still good, but if any of you guys want this stuff, I mean, hit me up on any of my social media. I have a box full of stuff in here. So obviously this is for legal reasons. This is meant as a joke. Don't ask me for any stuff that actually isn't, in good condition. If you guys do want any of this stuff, feel free to message me on any of the social media, and I can let you know, what's good and what's not. Obviously, I'm not going to give you any of the backing plates too. Unless you guys want them, part of the Datsun history. At this point is go ahead and bleed the brakes. We're going to be using some DOT3 pre-stone brake fluid, and once that's done, I would say we would go for a test drive. I've been promising a test drive, but it's kind of difficult right now when, if you guys can see down there, I have no suspension. It's barely getting back into place. So I ended up coming outside. I ended up opening the garage because it was getting pretty hot in there. Yeah, guys, that's going to be it for today's video. Hopefully by the next one, like I showed you guys, we're doing the front end suspension rebuild. So it's going to be all new bushings. It's going to be all new end links, etc., etc.
tie rods, everything's going to be done for it, new struts, new springs. So we're going to be pretty much just completely rebuilding the front end. The rear is going to end up coming along as well. Hopefully we can go ahead and go out for a test drive in the next video when the Datsun's done. At this point, I mean, I'm going to call it a day. It's been hot, it's been a difficult 3 days, and there's still way too much to go on to this car. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Sorry, it's a little abrupt and kind of everywhere, but nonetheless, we pushed through, we finished it, it's done. I'm happy that it's done. I can officially say that the Datsun is running WILWOOD disc brakes instead of drum brakes fully throughout. But that's gonna be the end of today's video. I hope you guys did enjoy. Feel free to go ahead and like, subscribe down below. Let me know what you guys thought about today's video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.